How long? The words tore from Evangeline's throat as she stood frozen in the doorway, her hand still gripping the frame for balance. The pregnancy test, the one she'd been dying to show him, felt like lead in her purse. Brian didn't even flinch. He reached for his shirt, calm as if she'd interrupted a business meeting. Evangeline, you're being dramatic. From the tangled sheets, her Egyptian cotton sheets, Celeste's voice cracked through the silence. Evie, please. We never meant to hurt you. 6 months. Evangeline's laugh came out broken, hollow. 6 months you've been sleeping with my sister. While I was opening restaurants. While we were trying to get pregnant. While I was... Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. I'm carrying your child, Brian. Found out this morning. The silence that followed could have shattered glass. Welcome to Mr. Ashbourne Golden Narratives. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button because today's story will leave you breathless. And to my incredible subscribers, thank you for being part of this journey. Before we dive in, I need to know, would you forgive someone who destroyed your trust while you carried their child? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. And if betrayal has ever rocked your world, you'll want to hear every word of what comes next. Now, dive in. Brian's hand stilled on his belt buckle. Celeste's face went white. 4-3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Then Brian's businessman mask slid back into place. You're pregnant. He took a step toward her. Are you certain? Don't. Evangeline backed away, one hand moving protectively to her stomach. Don't you dare act like you care now. Of course I care. His voice softened, shifting into that persuasive tone that had convinced her to merge their businesses, to put everything in joint accounts, to trust him completely. This changes everything, Evangeline. We need to discuss this rationally. Work through. Work through what? Evangeline interrupted, her voice rising. How to explain to our child that Daddy prefers Aunt Celeste? How to co-parent while you two continue this sick affair? Celeste was crying now, her perfect makeup smearing down her cheeks. Evie, you don't understand. I've been so lost since David left. Brian was there for me when you were always at the restaurant, always working, never. Don't. The word came out like a whip crack. Don't you dare blame my career. Don't you dare make this about me working too hard while you were screwing my husband in my house. No one's blaming your success, Brian said, now fully dressed and regaining his composure. But let's be honest, Evangeline. Our marriage has been strained for months. You're never here. Food is your first love, not me. Not us. The accusation landed like a physical blow. Evangeline felt her knees weaken. Because you encouraged me. You said you were proud of my empire, that we were building legacies together. Was that all lies while you were, what? Seducing my sister as backup? That's not fair, Celeste interjected, now wrapped in Evangeline's own silk robe, the final insult. Brian and I have a connection you wouldn't understand. We actually talk about things beyond work schedules and restaurant openings. We have real conversations. Real intimacy. Something inside Evangeline turned to ice. The tears stopped. Her hands stopped shaking. She looked at her sister, her baby sister who she'd helped through her messy divorce, who'd been living in their guest cottage rent-free, who she'd invited to every family dinner, every celebration, every moment of her life. How long? She asked again, this time her voice steady as steel. Brian and Celeste exchanged a glance. That's when Evangeline knew it was worse than she'd imagined. 6 months, Brian finally admitted, his voice clinical. It started during her divorce proceedings. We never intended it to become this. 6 months. Evangeline processed the timeline. While I was working 20-hour days to open the Portland location. While we were doing IVF consultations. While I was crying every month when my period came, you were... We tried to stop, Celeste said, her voice thick with tears. So many times, Evie. But we couldn't. What Brian and I have, it's real. It's not just physical. We understand each other. You understand each other. Evangeline looked between them, these two people who should have loved her most in the world. Tell me something, Celeste. When you were lying in this bed with my husband, did you think about me at all? When I was at work earning the money that paid for your divorce lawyer, that paid for everything, were you thinking about your sister then? Celeste flinched. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Evangeline demanded. Explain it to me. Make me understand how my sister and my husband decided that what they wanted was more important than everything we built. Everything we promised each other. You built your restaurant empire, Brian said, and now his voice carried an edge. You built your career, your reputation, your fame. What did you build with me, Evangeline? When was the last time we had dinner together? When was the last time you chose me over a kitchen emergency? I chose you every single day. Evangeline's voice cracked. I chose you when I agreed to put my restaurants under your hospitality group. I chose you when I moved our timeline up for trying to get pregnant, even though it meant stepping back from expanding. I chose you every time I came home exhausted and still tried to be present, to be a wife, to be a wife who was never actually here, Brian finished. Your body was here sometimes, Evangeline. Your mind never left that kitchen. The words hung between them, sharp and final. Evangeline's hand went to her purse, to the pregnancy test still tucked inside. She'd been so excited to share this news. So certain it would bring them closer, would finally make them closer. Everything I did was for us, she said quietly. For this. Her hand moved to her stomach. For our family. Evie, Celeste started. Get out. Evangeline's voice was ice. Both of you. Get out of my house. Evangeline, be reasonable, Brian said. This is my house too. We need to discuss. Your house. Something fierce and terrible rose in Evangeline's chest. Just get out. Brian's eyes narrowed. The mask was fully back now, cold businessman calculating the angles. You're upset. I understand. But let's not make rash decisions. Think about the baby. Think about what divorce would do to both our reputations. We can work through this privately as adults. Work through you sleeping with my sister? Evangeline laughed, but it sounded wrong. Broken. There's nothing to work through, Brian. We're done. This marriage is done. And neither of you will ever see me or my child again. She turned to leave, but Celeste's voice stopped her. Evie, wait. Please. I'm your sister. We can get through this as a family. Maybe this baby is exactly what we all need to heal. To find a new way forward. Evangeline turned back slowly. Looked at her sister, really looked at her. At the woman who'd shared her childhood, her secrets, her entire life. You're not my sister anymore, she said simply. My sister died the first time she climbed into bed with my husband. I don't know who you are. Then she walked out, leaving them both standing in that guest room surrounded by the wreckage of everything she'd once believed was real. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, drop a comment below. Evangeline didn't remember grabbing her purse. Didn't remember walking through the living room, past the photos of their wedding day still hanging on the walls, Brian dipping her for a kiss, both of them laughing, so damn young and stupid and in love. She didn't remember getting into her Tesla or backing out of the driveway. But suddenly she was on Highway 101 heading south toward San Francisco, her vision blurred with tears she couldn't stop. The steering wheel was slick under her palms. Her breath came in ragged gasps that sounded like drowning. Every few miles she'd have to pull onto the shoulder because she couldn't see through the tears, couldn't trust herself not to drive straight into oncoming traffic. Breathe, she told herself, gripping the wheel. Just breathe. But how do you breathe when your lungs feel crushed? When the two people who should have protected you most have just torn you apart? Her phone was ringing. Brian's name lighting up the screen. Then Celeste. Then Brian again. Evangeline grabbed it with shaking hands and powered it off completely. Threw it into her purse where she wouldn't have to see their names, their faces, their lies. The nausea was back, worse than this morning. She pulled over near Petaluma and vomited on the side of the road, her body purging everything it could while her mind replayed that scene on endless loop. Brian's back. Celeste's legs. The sheets. The betrayal. 6 months. While she'd been building their future, they'd been destroying it. When she finally made it to the Mission District, the sun was setting, painting the San Francisco streets in shades of orange and gold that felt obscene. How dare the world still be beautiful when hers had just ended? Sage Moonrunner's apartment was above an organic market that smelled like fresh bread and herbs. Evangeline climbed the narrow stairs on legs that barely held her, knocked on the door and waited. Sage opened it wearing paint-splattered overalls, her gray-streaked hair pulled back in a messy bun. One look at Evangeline's face and her expression shifted from surprise to alarm. Jesus, Evie. She pulled her inside immediately. You look like hell. What happened? Brian. Evangeline's voice came out broken. And Celeste. I caught them. Together. Sit down before you collapse. Sage guided her to the worn velvet sofa, the same one they'd sat on years ago when Evangeline was just a line cook with big dreams and Sage was her sous chef, both of them planning their escape from toxic kitchen culture. The story spilled out in fragments. The pregnancy test. The drive home. Opening that door. The confrontation. Everything. Sage listened without interrupting, her weathered hands, scarred from decades of kitchen work, gripping Evangeline's tighter with each revelation. 6 months, Evangeline finished, her voice hoarse. While I was doing everything he said he wanted. Building my empire. Trying to get pregnant. Being the perfect wife. They were. That bastard. Sage's voice was pure fury. And Celeste? Your own sister? She said they have a connection I wouldn't understand. Evangeline laughed, but it came out like a sob. That they have real intimacy because I'm always working. Like this is somehow my fault. No. Sage's voice cut through sharp and clear. Absolutely not. You don't get to carry that. Brian's a grown man who made a choice. Celeste made a choice. Their betrayal isn't about your career or your hours or anything you did wrong. But what if they're right? Evangeline whispered. What if I was so focused on the restaurants that I missed? Stop. Sage grabbed her face, forcing eye contact. Listen to me. You could have worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That still wouldn't justify what they did. Betrayal isn't caused by the victim's behavior. It's a character flaw in the betrayer. The words broke something loose in Evangeline's chest. She doubled over, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Sage held her through it, murmuring reassurances, occasionally getting up to grab more tissues from her dwindling supply. There's more, Evangeline said when she could finally speak again. Her hand moved to her stomach. I'm pregnant. Found out this morning. Sage went very still. Oh, honey. I was so excited to tell him. So sure this would be the thing that made everything perfect. Evangeline's laugh was bitter. Instead I walked in on him destroying our marriage while our baby. She couldn't finish. The thought was too much. This child growing inside her, innocent and perfect, would be born into a family shattered by the two people who should have loved it most. What are you going to do? Sage asked gently. I don't know. Evangeline pressed her palms against her eyes. I told them I was leaving. That they'd never see me or the baby again. But I don't even know where to start. My restaurants are under his hospitality group. Our accounts are joint. Everything is tangled together. Then we untangle it. Sage's voice carried the steel that had made her legendary in professional kitchens. First, you're staying here as long as you need. Second, we're getting you the best divorce attorney in California. Third, we're protecting that baby from their toxicity. Brian will come looking. Especially now that he knows about the pregnancy. Let him try. Sage stood, already moving toward her desk. You're not the scared line cook anymore, Evie. You're Evangeline Winters. 3 Michelin stars. James Beard nominee. You built an empire from nothing. If you can survive that, you can survive this. Evangeline wanted to believe her. But right now, sitting in Sage's apartment with her life in ruins around her, she felt more like that scared line cook than she had in years. I'm tired, she whispered. So tired, Sage. I know. Come on. Sage helped her up. Guest alcove is all yours. We'll deal with everything else tomorrow. That night, curled up in Sage's narrow guest bed, Evangeline allowed herself to feel everything she'd been suppressing. The rage. The humiliation. The devastating heartbreak of losing not just her husband but her sister. Her family. Everything she'd built her life around. But beneath it all, a different emotion was building. Not just maternal protection for the child growing inside her, but something fiercer. Something that tasted like survival. I promise you, she whispered to her unborn child, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. You'll never see Mama this broken again, and nobody, not your father, not anyone, will ever make us feel this worthless again. Morning came too soon and not soon enough. Evangeline woke to the smell of steel-cut oats and fresh fruit, her body aching like she'd been in a physical fight. In a way she had been. Sage was already up, sitting at her kitchen table with a legal pad covered in notes. 2 mugs of herbal tea steamed beside a plate of toast. Sit, Sage commanded gently. You need to eat. The baby needs fuel. The word baby made Evangeline's throat close up. She sank into the chair, picking up the tea with hands that still trembled. I couldn't sleep, Sage admitted, pushing the legal pad toward her. So I started making a plan. We need to move fast, Evie. Brian's smart, ruthless, and he has resources. Evangeline looked at the notes. Financial assets. Business holdings. Custody considerations. Legal representation. Sage had broken down her entire life into bullet points. First question, Sage said, her voice businesslike. What's your financial situation? How independent are you? Evangeline forced herself to think through the fog of exhaustion and grief. Complicated. Brian insisted we merge everything when we got serious about expansion. My restaurants technically operate under Beaumont Hospitality Group now. But, she paused, remembering. I have separate accounts from before the marriage. My cookbook royalties go to a personal account. And I've been getting consulting offers. How much independence are we talking about? My cookbook advance alone could support me for a year, maybe more if I'm careful. And the consulting offers, restaurants in Portland, Seattle, even that culinary retreat center in Oregon wanted me as chef in residence. Sage's eyes sharpened. That retreat center. Tell me more. It's in the Cascades. Wellness-focused, privacy-oriented. Celebrities and executives go there to detox from their lives. They've been courting me for months to develop their therapeutic kitchen program. Perfect. Sage circled something on her pad. That's where you disappear to. Disappear? Brian will come after you. Especially now with the pregnancy, he'll use that Beaumont legacy angle to maintain control. You need to be somewhere he can't find you until you're strong enough to fight from a position of power. The idea of running felt like cowardice. But as Evangeline thought about facing Brian right now, about negotiating while pregnant and traumatized, about watching him and Celeste present a united front. I have a friend, Sage continued. Luna Martinez. Best family law attorney in California. Specializes in high-net-worth divorces with custody complications. I'm calling her this morning. Sage, I can't afford. You can't afford not to. Your restaurants, your reputation, your child, everything is at stake. Luna will help you separate your assets, establish your financial independence, and most importantly, protect that baby from whatever games Brian decides to play. Evangeline's hand moved to her stomach. Protection. That's what mattered now. Not her pride, not her hurt feelings. This child deserved better than being used as a pawn. Okay, she said quietly. Call her. Luna arrived at Sage's apartment 3 hours later. A sharp woman in her 50s with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that reminded Evangeline of the best line cooks she'd ever worked with. Tell me everything, Luna said, settling onto the sofa with a tablet. Start from the beginning. Evangeline walked her through it all. The marriage. The business merger. The betrayal. The pregnancy. Brian's initial reaction. Luna took notes without judgment, occasionally asking precise questions about dates, documents, and financial structures. You're in a stronger position than you think, Luna finally said. Your restaurants existed before the marriage. Your personal brand is separate from his. The fact that you left immediately upon discovering infidelity works in your favor. And the pregnancy, that's complicated, but it also gives you leverage. How? Evangeline asked. Brian wants this baby. The Beaumont legacy is everything to his family. He'll fight for custody, yes, but he'll also want to avoid a public battle that exposes his affair with your sister. That gives us negotiating room. I don't want to negotiate. I want him gone from my life. Luna's expression softened slightly. I understand. But unless you plan to disappear permanently, which I don't recommend, you're going to have to co-parent with this man for the next 18 years. Our job is to make sure you do it on your terms, not his. The reality settled over Evangeline like a weight. Brian would always be part of her life now. Not as her husband, not as her partner, but as the father of her child. There was no escape from that. What do we do first? She asked. First, we quietly separate your personal assets from joint accounts. Nothing dramatic that would trigger alerts, just moving your independent income streams into accounts he can't touch. Second, we document everything, the affair, your emotional state, your decision to leave for your well-being and the babies. Third, Luna paused. Third, you disappear for a while. Somewhere safe where you can focus on your health and pregnancy without Brian's interference. He'll try to find me. Let him try. As long as you're receiving proper prenatal care and maintaining legal compliance, he has no grounds to force disclosure of your location. Not until after the birth anyway. What about my restaurants? My staff? Sage leaned forward. You're taking a sabbatical for personal health reasons. Your sous chefs are more than capable, you train them to be. And when you're ready, when you're strong enough, you come back and reclaim everything that's yours. Evangeline looked between these two women, Sage, who'd known her since her line cook days, and Luna, who'd just met her but was already strategizing like a general planning a campaign. They believed she could do this. Maybe it was time to believe it herself. The retreat center in Oregon, she said slowly. I could reach out. Tell them I'm ready to start. Do it today, Luna advised. The sooner you're established somewhere safe, the better. And Evangeline? Don't tell anyone where you're going. Not your staff, not mutual friends, definitely not family. Not family. Because her family had just imploded. Her sister was sleeping with her husband. Her parents, God, she'd have to tell her parents eventually. They'd be devastated. Furious. But right now, she couldn't handle their emotions on top of her own. I'll make the call, she said. That afternoon, while Sage ran interference with Evangeline's restaurant managers and Luna began filing preliminary paperwork, Evangeline sat in the small bedroom and dialed the number for Cascade Wellness Retreat. A calm male voice answered. Cascade Wellness, River speaking. Hi. My name is Evangeline Winters. I'm a chef, and I was contacted a few months ago about your therapeutic kitchen program. She paused, her voice steadying. I'd like to discuss coming on as chef in residence. Very soon. 3 days later, Evangeline's Tesla climbed through the Cascade Mountains, each winding turn taking her further from the life she'd known. The October landscape was breathtaking. Douglas firs towering over roads slick with morning mist, mountains rising sharply against a sky so blue it hurt to look at. She'd left San Francisco before dawn, her entire life condensed into 3 suitcases and a determination to survive. Her sous chef at Ambrosia had taken the news of her health sabbatical, with concern but professionalism. The Portland location's manager had promised to hold down the fort. Nobody questioned why their celebrated chef suddenly needed time away. Nobody except Brian, whose calls and texts had become increasingly frantic over the past 72 hours. We need to talk about our child. You can't just disappear. This is my baby too. My lawyers are already preparing for when the baby arrives. Don't think you can keep me from my own child. Luna had been right. He was already threatening legal action, positioning this as Evangeline being unstable and irrational. Good thing she'd already established a paper trail. Doctor's appointments, prenatal vitamins, consultation with a therapist Sage had recommended. Every move documented, every decision rational and measured. When the custody battle came after the birth, she'd be ready. The GPS announced her arrival as the road opened onto a clearing. Cascade Wellness Retreat sprawled before her, a main lodge built of timber and stone, surrounded by smaller cabins that overlooked a pristine alpine lake. Prayer flags fluttered from trees, their colors bright against the evergreens. Everything about the place whispered peace. Evangeline parked near the lodge and sat for a moment, her hands on the steering wheel. This was it. Her sanctuary. Her escape. The place where she transformed from broken wife into something stronger. The lodge door opened and a man stepped out onto the wraparound porch. Tall, lean, with dark hair threaded with silver and an outdoor worker's grace. He descended the stairs with easy confidence, his eyes assessing her kindly. Evangeline. His voice matched the one from the phone, calm, grounded. I'm River Blackwood. Welcome to Cascade. She climbed out of the car, suddenly aware of how she must look, exhausted, pale, her eyes still swollen from crying herself to sleep the past 3 nights. Thank you for accommodating me on such short notice. Her professional mask slid into place automatically. I know this isn't your typical intake process. We're flexible when someone needs healing. River's gaze was direct but not intrusive. Your friend Sage called ahead. Explained you're going through a difficult transition and need privacy. Difficult transition. That was one way to describe having your life detonated. Let me show you to your cabin. River reached for one of her suitcases despite her protest. We can do the formal orientation later. Right now you look like you need rest. They walked a path that wound through towering pines, the lake visible through breaks in the trees. River pointed out features as they went, the meditation pavilion, the organic gardens, the therapeutic art studio. The main kitchen is in the lodge, he said. Our chef Aspen prepares all meals with ingredients from the gardens. But your cabin has a full kitchen if you prefer privacy. Whatever serves your healing. What made you create this place? Evangeline asked, genuinely curious. The retreat felt purposeful, intentional in ways that spoke of personal experience rather than business opportunity. River smiled, but it carried shadows. I burned out spectacularly in my previous life. Investment banking in Manhattan. Made millions, had the penthouse, the society wife, the whole performance. Then my body decided it had enough and gave me a heart attack at 38. I'm sorry. Don't be. Best thing that ever happened to me. Forced me to examine what I was actually building versus what I thought I was supposed to build. He glanced at her. Sometimes our biggest disasters are invitations to find our real lives. The words settled into Evangeline's chest, resonating with something she hadn't yet articulated. Maybe this betrayal, as devastating as it felt, was exactly that, an invitation. Her cabin appeared through the trees. Small but perfect. 1 bedroom, a living area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, and yes, a full kitchen gleaming with copper pots and professional-grade appliances. "We had it upgraded when we knew you were coming," River admitted, setting down her suitcase. "Sage mentioned you might want to cook. Seemed important to have the right tools." Tears pricked Evangeline's eyes at the thoughtfulness. When was the last time someone had anticipated her needs without her having to ask? "The refrigerator is stocked with basics," River continued. "But like I said, all meals are available in the main dining room if you prefer company. No pressure either way." "Thank you." The words felt inadequate for what he was offering, not just shelter but understanding. "I'll let you settle in." River moved toward the door, then paused. "Evangeline? Whatever brought you here, whatever you're running from or toward, you're safe now. Take the time you need." After he left, Evangeline stood at the window watching the lake reflect the mountains, her hand resting on her stomach where her baby was growing. 8 weeks along now. 12 weeks until she'd be past the danger zone. 24 weeks until viability. 32 weeks until she'd hold this child in her arms. She'd do this alone. Build a life here in these mountains, deliver her baby in safety, then return to San Francisco strong enough to fight for everything that was hers. The next morning, Evangeline woke to birdsong and soft light filtering through gauze curtains. For the first time in days, she hadn't dreamed of Brian and Celeste. Hadn't woken gasping from nightmares of their betrayal. She made herself breakfast in the cabin kitchen. Nothing fancy, just scrambled eggs and toast, but the act of cooking felt meditative. Healing. For too long, food had been performance, competition, business. Here it could just be nourishment. A knock at the door interrupted her coffee. River stood on the porch holding a basket. "Morning delivery from the gardens," he said. "Thought you might enjoy fresh vegetables." Evangeline accepted the basket. Tomatoes still warm from the sun, herbs fragrant and dewy, squash in shades of gold and green. Her chef's mind immediately started planning dishes. "Join me for a walk?" River asked. "I usually circuit the lake in the mornings. Good way to orient yourself to the property." They walked in companionable silence at first, the morning cool and perfect. River pointed out trails, explained the retreat schedule. Optional yoga at dawn, meditation in the pavilion, various therapeutic workshops throughout the day. "Nothing is mandatory," he emphasized. "Some people come here and participate in everything. Others spend weeks in their cabins processing. Both are valid." "What did you do?" Evangeline asked. "When you first came here? I slept for 3 days straight. Then I sat by the lake and cried for a week. Then I started rebuilding who I actually was underneath all the performance." He glanced at her. "There's no timeline for healing. It takes what it takes." "I'm pregnant," Evangeline heard herself say. "That's why I'm here. I'm pregnant with my ex-husband's child, and I need to do this somewhere he can't find me." River absorbed this without judgment. "Then you came to the right place. We take privacy seriously. And we have excellent relationships with local obstetricians if you need prenatal care. Already scheduled my first appointment." Luna had insisted on that. "Next week in the town nearby." "Good." They walked in silence for a moment. "Can I ask what happened?" "You don't have to share if you're not ready." Evangeline surprised herself by telling him. Not everything but enough. The betrayal, her sister, the pregnancy discovery. River listened the way he seemed to do everything, with complete presence without rushing to offer solutions or platitudes. "That's profound betrayal," he finally said. "Not just one person but 2 people who should have protected you most. Sometimes I wonder if I deserved it." The admission came out small. "If I was so focused on my career that I drove them together." River stopped walking, turned to face her. "No. That's the story they want you to believe because it absolves them of responsibility. You could have worked every hour of every day, that still wouldn't justify their choice to betray you." The same words Sage had said, but hearing them from someone new made them feel more real. "I'm going to help you believe that," River said quietly. "For however long you're here." The first week passed in a blur of sleep and tears. Evangeline would wake at odd hours, disoriented, reaching for Brian before remembering. Then the grief would crash over her again, fresh, raw, relentless. She kept her prenatal appointment in the nearby town of Sisters. The obstetrician, Dr. Miller, was professional and kind, asking no questions about why a San Francisco chef was suddenly receiving care in rural Oregon. The ultrasound showed a tiny flicker, her baby's heartbeat strong and steady at 9 weeks. "Everything looks perfect," Dr. Miller said, handing her grainy printouts. "You're doing great." Evangeline stared at the images on the drive back. This tiny being, no bigger than a grape, completely dependent on her to stay strong. To heal. To build a life worth being born into. The second week, she started leaving her cabin more. Not for the group activities, she wasn't ready for that level of human interaction, but for walks. Long, aimless walks around the lake, through the forest trails, breathing mountain air that felt cleaner than anything in San Francisco. River often appeared on these walks, never intrusive, just present. They'd fall into step together, talking about everything except the thing that had brought her here. He told her about the retreat's history, the land's ecology, the guests who'd found healing in these mountains. She told him about her culinary journey, the restaurants she'd built, the satisfaction of creating something people remembered years later. Food is your love language, River observed one morning as they watched mist rise off the lake. Was Evangeline corrected? Past tense. I don't know what it is now. Maybe that's okay. Maybe you get to discover it again. By the third week, Evangeline's morning sickness had mostly passed, replaced by a ravenous hunger that surprised her. She started cooking in her cabin kitchen, not the elaborate dishes that had earned her Michelin stars, but simple, nourishing meals. Roasted vegetables from River's gardens. Fresh bread that filled her cabin with yeast and warmth. Soups that simmered for hours while she read or journaled or stared at the lake. The act of cooking without pressure, without critics or reviews or staff watching her every move, felt revolutionary. She'd forgotten that food could be just food. That creating a meal could be an act of self-care rather than performance. One afternoon, River knocked on her door with a basket of tomatoes, their skins still warm from the sun. Aspen's drowning in these, he said. Thought you might want them. Evangeline took the basket, an idea forming. Do you have a few hours? I want to make sauce. Real sauce, the kind that takes time. But I don't want to do it alone. River's smile reached his eyes. I'd be honored. They worked side by side in her small kitchen, Evangeline showing him how to peel tomatoes by blanching them first, how to build flavor with garlic and olive oil and fresh basil from his gardens. River followed her instructions with the focused attention he brought to everything, asking questions, making her laugh with his complete lack of knife skills. How did you survive in Manhattan without knowing how to chop an onion? She teased. I had people for that. People for everything, actually. That was part of the problem. He managed to dice the onion into uneven chunks. I was so disconnected from basic human activities that I forgot what it meant to actually live. And now I grow vegetables and chop them badly and feel more alive than I ever did making millions. He looked at her. What about you? Do you feel alive in the kitchen? Evangeline considered the question as she stirred the sauce, watching tomatoes break down into rich, red gold. I used to. Before it became about accolades and competition and proving I belonged in a world designed to exclude me. Before every dish was a statement. And now this sauce is just for us. And that feels enough. They ate it later with fresh pasta, sitting on her cabin porch as the sun set over the lake. River declared it the best thing he'd ever tasted, and Evangeline knew he was exaggerating, but she didn't mind. The meal had been made with intention, with presence, with something that felt suspiciously like joy. At 20 weeks, Evangeline learned she was carrying a girl. Dr. Miller pointed to the ultrasound screen, showing her the tiny profile, the delicate fingers, the strong heartbeat. Healthy and perfect. Want to know the sex? Yes. Evangeline gripped the edge of the examination table. Please. It's a girl. Congratulations. A daughter. She was having a daughter who would grow up watching her mother rebuild from nothing, who would learn that women don't need men to save them, that strength looks like getting up every day even when everything hurts. What will you name her? River asked that evening when she told him, both of them sitting by the lake watching the sun paint the water gold. Phoenix, Evangeline said without hesitation. Rising from ashes. Transformed by fire. Phoenix Winters. River tested the name. She's going to be extraordinary. She already is. The peace shattered 2 days later when Luna called, her voice tight with controlled anger. Brian's making his move. He's filed a motion claiming you've had a mental breakdown and are living in an unstable environment unsuitable for a pregnant woman. He wants court-ordered disclosure of your location and medical oversight. Evangeline's hand moved protectively to her rounded belly. Can he do that? He's trying. But we're ready. I've scheduled a video hearing with Judge Patricia Liu for tomorrow. You'll appear from the retreat, demonstrate your stability, show your prenatal records. We've got documentation of the therapeutic environment, your consistent medical care, everything. What if it's not enough? What if? Evangeline. Luna's voice cut through the panic. You're not the broken woman who left San Francisco 5 months ago. You're thriving. Let the judge see that. The hearing took place in River's office, the most professional space at the retreat. Evangeline wore a simple navy dress that accommodated her pregnancy, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked healthy, grounded, completely in control. Judge Liu appeared on screen, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. Mrs. Beaumont, she began. Ms. Winters, Your Honor, Evangeline corrected gently but firmly. I've resumed my professional name. Ms. Winters. The judge studied her through the camera. Your husband claims you've abandoned your responsibilities and are living in an unstable environment. What do you say to that? Evangeline met her gaze directly. Your Honor, I left my marital home after discovering my husband's 6-month affair with my sister. I was 8 weeks pregnant at the time and made the decision to prioritize my mental and physical health by relocating to a licensed wellness center. I've maintained consistent prenatal care with Dr. Sarah Chen in Sisters, Oregon. My pregnancy is progressing beautifully. I'm continuing my professional work remotely with my restaurant consultations and have developed a therapeutic cooking program here. My physical and emotional well-being have never been stronger. Brian's attorney, a slick man named Thornton, jumped in. Your Honor, Ms. Winters is residing at what amounts to a spa retreat, funded by marital assets, while avoiding her husband's attempts at reconciliation. There will be no reconciliation, Evangeline interrupted, her voice steel. Mr. Beaumont destroyed our marriage through his choices. I'm not avoiding him. I'm protecting myself and our daughter from further emotional harm while I prepare for single motherhood. Daughter? Brian's voice came through, sharp with surprise. The judge's expression hardened. Mr. Beaumont, you'll speak when addressed. Ms. Winters, you mentioned you're having a girl? Yes, Your Honor. 20 weeks along. Everything is healthy and on track. Luna smoothly provided the retreat's credentials, River's background, testimonials from other clients including several prominent executives who'd found healing there. Dr. Miller appeared via video to confirm Evangeline's excellent prenatal care and stable emotional state. Thornton tried to paint the retreat as cultish, but his arguments fell flat against the documentation. Judge Liu studied the evidence, then looked at Evangeline again. Ms. Winters, you appear to be in excellent health and making sound decisions for yourself and your unborn child. Your location will remain protected until after the birth. Mr. Beaumont will have no contact except through attorneys until custody arrangements can be formally established post-delivery. Your Honor, Thornton started. My decision is final. This hearing is adjourned. After the screen went black, Evangeline sat trembling, adrenaline flooding through her. River appeared in the doorway. You were magnificent. I was terrified. You didn't show it. You showed strength, clarity, complete control. He crossed to her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. He tried to paint you as unstable, and you proved you're anything but. Evangeline looked up at him, at this man who'd created a sanctuary where she could rebuild herself. His green eyes held something that made her breath catch, not just respect or friendship but something deeper. River, she whispered. I know. His voice was rough. I know the timing is impossible. You're still married, still pregnant, still healing. But Evangeline, watching you these months, seeing your strength, your grace, the way you've transformed pain into purpose. Don't. She stood, putting space between them even though everything in her wanted to close it. You're right. The timing is impossible. I'm having another man's baby. I'm still legally his wife. And I need to prove I can stand on my own before I lean on anyone else. I understand. River's hands dropped. But when you're ready, really ready, not just thinking you should be, I'll be here. The promise hung between them, electric and dangerous and impossibly tempting. That night, Evangeline wrote in her journal. Phoenix, today your mama fought for us and won. But she also discovered something terrifying. She's falling for someone. Not the desperate, clinging kind of falling that would be about filling the void Brian left. But something real. Something that could only happen because I've done the work to become whole again. But you come first. Always. I won't build our new life on a foundation of romantic rescue. When River and I come together, if we come together, it will be because I chose him from strength, not need. For now we wait. We heal. We prepare to meet each other. The months moved like water, steady, inevitable, transforming everything they touched. At 24 weeks, Phoenix became real in ways that ultrasounds couldn't capture. She kicked during Evangeline's morning yoga, making her laugh mid-pose. She did somersaults when Evangeline ate anything with garlic, apparently already opinionated about her mother's cooking choices. She settled down when River's voice rumbled near Evangeline's belly, as if already recognizing the man who would become part of her life. The therapeutic kitchen program expanded. Word spread through wellness circles about the celebrated chef teaching trauma survivors to cook, and the waiting list grew. Evangeline found herself working 4 days a week, guiding people through more than just recipes, teaching them that creating nourishment was an act of reclaiming power. "You're a natural at this," Dr. Moon observed after sitting in on a class where Evangeline helped a sexual assault survivor make her first meal without anxiety. "Have you considered making this your focus after Phoenix arrives?" The idea took root. What if she didn't go back to the restaurants? What if this, using food as healing rather than performance, became her new empire? At 28 weeks, Luna called with news. Divorce papers are ready. Brian's contesting the asset division, but his affair is documented, and California is a no-fault state anyway. We're in a strong position. What about custody? That gets determined after birth. But your documentation, the prenatal care, stable environment, professional work, it all supports shared custody with you as primary parent. He'll get visitation, but Phoenix lives with you. Evangeline's hand moved to where Phoenix was currently doing gymnastics against her ribs. Visitation meant Brian in their lives forever. It meant her daughter knowing the man who'd betrayed them both. But it also meant Phoenix would have her father, flawed as he was. "I can live with that," she said finally. At 32 weeks, winter arrived in the mountains. Snow blanketed the retreat, turning it into something from a fairy tale. Evangeline's belly was enormous now, Phoenix running out of room but still active. River helped her navigate the icy paths, his hands steady at her elbow. They developed a careful dance, close but not too close, intimate but not crossing lines. He brought her tea in the mornings. She cooked him dinner most evenings. They talked for hours by her fireplace, discussing everything from philosophy to the retreat's expansion plans to what kind of mother Evangeline wanted to be. "I'm terrified," she admitted one snowy evening, watching flames dance in the hearth. "What if I'm terrible at it? What if my career damaged me too much and I can't actually put someone else first?" "You've been putting others first for months," River said from his chair across from her. "Every person you've taught to cook, every trauma survivor you've helped find their way back to nourishing themselves. That's mothering. You're already doing it. That's different." They go home. "Phoenix will be mine forever. And she'll be lucky to have you." River's voice was soft. "She'll grow up watching her mother be strong, independent, uncompromising about her worth. What better gift could you give her?" At 36 weeks, Evangeline was enormous, uncomfortable, and ready to meet her daughter. Dr. Miller confirmed everything looked perfect. Phoenix was head down, good size, no complications anticipated. "Any day now," the doctor said cheerfully. "Call when contractions start getting regular." That evening, Evangeline walked the lake path one last time before Phoenix arrived, River beside her as always. The March sunset painted everything gold and pink, the last of the snow melting into spring. "I've been thinking," Evangeline said, pausing to catch her breath. Everything was harder with 40 pounds of baby and fluid. "About after. About what comes next. And I'm not going back to San Francisco. Not to live anyway. I'll need to go back for the restaurants, for legal proceedings, for custody arrangements. But this," she gestured at the mountains, the lake, the retreat. "This is home now. I want to raise Phoenix here. Keep developing the therapeutic kitchen. Build something real." River was quiet for a long moment. "That would make me very happy." "Would it?" Evangeline turned to face him, her belly between them like a declaration. "Even though I come with complications? A baby, an ex-husband who'll be around forever, legal battles, a career that's still demanding." "Evangeline." River stepped closer, his hands framing her face. "I've watched you transform from a woman who could barely stand into someone who's about to bring life into this world while building a program that heals dozens of people. Your complications don't scare me. They're part of who you are. And when you're ready, really ready, I want all of it." "After Phoenix comes," Evangeline said, though her body was already leaning toward him. "After I prove I can do this alone. Then we can talk about us." "I'll wait," River promised. "However long it takes." 3 days later, at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, Evangeline's water broke. The gush of warm fluid woke her from restless sleep. For a moment, Evangeline lay frozen in the darkness, her mind slow to process. Then reality crashed in. "Oh God. Okay. This is happening." She fumbled for her phone, hands shaking as she dialed River's number. He answered on the second ring, voice alert despite the hour. "Evangeline. My water broke. I need to get to the hospital. I'm on my way. 2 minutes. He arrived in less than that, still pulling on a jacket over his t-shirt, hair wild from sleep. He found Evangeline standing in her kitchen, gripping the counter as the first real contraction seized her body. Breathe, he said, his hand steady on her back. Just breathe through it. The contraction passed. Evangeline straightened, grabbed her hospital bag, packed and ready for weeks, and let River guide her to his truck. The drive to Sisters took 30 minutes through dark mountain roads. Evangeline timed contractions on her phone, 7 minutes apart, then 6, then 5. Each one felt like her body was being torn in half and remade. You're doing great, River said, his voice calm even as he pushed the speed limit on the winding roads. Phoenix is coming. You're about to meet your daughter. I'm terrified, Evangeline gasped between contractions. I know. But you've got this. You're the strongest person I know. Dr. Miller met them at Sisters Hospital, all efficiency and calm reassurance. The labor and delivery room had a window overlooking the mountains, dawn just beginning to paint them pink. Let's check your progress, Dr. Miller said after getting Evangeline settled. 4 centimeters dilated. 6 more to go. The hours that followed blurred together, waves of pain that crescendoed and retreated, River's hand in hers, ice chips that did nothing for her parched throat, the doctor's periodic checks, nurses murmuring encouragement. At 8 centimeters, Evangeline started crying. Not from pain, though that was intense, but from overwhelming emotion. This was it. The moment everything changed. After this, she'd never be just herself again. She'd be Phoenix's mother, responsible for another human life, forever. I can't do this, she sobbed during a brief respite between contractions. What if I mess her up? What if I'm like my mother, cold and critical? What if? Hey. River leaned close, his forehead almost touching hers. Look at me. You are nothing like your mother. You're warm, present, intentional. Phoenix is lucky to have you. How do you know? Because I've watched you for 7 months. I've seen how you care for the people in your classes, how you put their healing above everything else. That's who you are. That's the mother Phoenix is getting. Another contraction hit, stealing her breath and any response. At 11:47 a.m., after 9 hours of labor, Dr. Miller said the words Evangeline had been waiting for. You're complete. Time to push. The next hour was primal, exhausting, beyond anything Evangeline had imagined. Her body took over, doing what women's bodies had done for millennia. River stayed by her head, whispering encouragement, wiping sweat from her face, never flinching even when she squeezed his hand hard enough to leave bruises. I can see her head, Dr. Miller announced. One more big push, Evangeline. Meet your daughter. Evangeline bore down with everything she had left. The pressure, the burning, the impossible stretch, and then suddenly release. A cry filled the room, sharp and indignant, and the most beautiful sound Evangeline had ever heard. It's a girl, Dr. Miller said unnecessarily, lifting a tiny, squirming body onto Evangeline's chest. Phoenix Winters, welcome to the world. Evangeline looked down at her daughter, slick with vernix, face scrunched and red, eyes squeezed shut against the bright lights. She was perfect. Impossibly, devastatingly perfect. Hi, baby girl, Evangeline whispered, her voice breaking. Hi, Phoenix. Mama's here. I'm right here. Phoenix's crying quieted at her voice. Those tiny eyes opened, dark blue, unfocused but searching, finding her mother's face. In that moment, everything else fell away. Brian's betrayal, Celeste's destruction of their family, the legal battles still to come, the uncertainty of her future, none of it mattered. Only this. Only Phoenix, warm and alive against her chest, depending on her for everything. She's beautiful, River said softly, tears streaming down his face as he looked at them both. Absolutely perfect. The nurses took Phoenix briefly for measurements and tests. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 19 inches long, APGAR scores perfect. Then she was back in Evangeline's arms, rooting for her first meal, instinct driving her toward survival. Breastfeeding was harder than expected, both of them fumbling to figure out the latch. But when Phoenix finally got it, when she started drinking with fierce determination, Evangeline felt something click into place. This was her purpose. Not the restaurants, not the accolades, not proving herself to an industry that didn't want her. This tiny human depending on her completely. You did it, River said hours later, after the room had quieted, Phoenix sleeping in Evangeline's arms. You brought her into the world alone, on your own strength. I wasn't alone, Evangeline said, looking up at him. You were here. As your friend. As someone who, he stopped, shook his head. As someone who cares deeply about you both. River. Evangeline shifted Phoenix carefully, reaching for his hand. After I heal. After we adjust to this new reality. I want to explore what we could be. But right now you're exactly where you need to be. A mother learning her daughter. That's all that matters. That night, alone with Phoenix in the hospital room, Evangeline whispered all the promises she'd been making for months. You're going to grow up knowing you're enough, exactly as you are. You'll watch Mama be strong, independent, uncompromising. You'll learn that real love doesn't hurt, it heals. And someday when you're old enough to understand, I'll tell you about the night everything fell apart, and how you were the reason I put it all back together. Phoenix made a small sound in her sleep, her tiny fist curling against Evangeline's chest. Welcome to the world, my fierce girl. Let's build something beautiful. The first weeks were a fog of sleepless nights and steep learning curves. Phoenix wanted to eat every 2 hours, day and night. Evangeline's body ached from birth, her breasts were tender and leaking, and she'd never been so exhausted in her life, not even during her worst kitchen shifts. But God, she was in love. Every sound Phoenix made, every tiny yawn, every time those dark blue eyes found her face, Evangeline felt her heart expand in ways she hadn't known were possible. This was what people meant when they talked about unconditional love. This fierce protectiveness that made everything else seem trivial. River showed up daily with food from the retreat's kitchen, never staying long, always respectful of her space. He'd hold Phoenix while Evangeline showered or napped, his large hands cradling her tiny body with surprising gentleness. You're a natural, Evangeline observed one afternoon, watching him sway with Phoenix against his chest. I like her, he said simply. She's got your determination. Look at how she grabs my finger, refuses to let go. At 6 weeks postpartum, Evangeline got medical clearance to resume normal activities. Her body had healed remarkably well, though she barely recognized it, softer, marked by the evidence of growing and birthing a human. Some days she mourned her old body. Other days she marveled at what it had accomplished. Brian had sent a formal request through attorneys to meet Phoenix. Luna advised allowing supervised visitation, denying it would hurt Evangeline's case for primary custody. He's her father, Luna said gently. The court will enforce his rights regardless of what he did to you. The first visitation happened at a neutral location in Portland, supervised by a social worker. Evangeline watched Brian hold Phoenix for the first time, saw his face soften in ways she'd forgotten it could. She's beautiful, he said, tears in his eyes. She has your chin. And your hands, Evangeline admitted because it was true. Phoenix had Brian's long fingers, his broad palms. For 90 minutes, they existed in a strange bubble where he was just a father meeting his daughter and she was just a mother facilitating that. The betrayal lived between them, solid and permanent, but Phoenix softened the edges. I'm sorry, Brian said as the visit ended. For everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know, I'm sorry. Evangeline looked at him, this man she'd loved, married, built a life with. I believe you are. But sorry doesn't undo 6 months of lies. It doesn't rebuild trust. It just means you understand you hurt me. Can we ever co-parent? Yes. Be friends? Maybe someday. Anything more? No, Brian. That died the day I opened that guest room door. He nodded, accepting what she'd known he already understood. They'd never be together again. But they'd always be Phoenix's parents. At 3 months, Phoenix started smiling, real, genuine smiles that lit up her whole face. Evangeline captured dozens of photos, sent them to Sage, who responded with heart emojis and demands for video calls. The therapeutic kitchen program had continued during Evangeline's maternity leave, run by Aspen with guest instructors. But Evangeline missed it. Missed the purpose it gave her beyond motherhood. What if I brought Phoenix with me? She asked River one evening. Set up a portable crib in the corner, let participants see that healing and motherhood can coexist? I think that's brilliant, River said. Show them that you can rebuild your life and still be present for your child. So she did. Twice a week, Evangeline taught with Phoenix nearby, sometimes sleeping, sometimes awake and gurgling, always a reminder that transformation was possible even in the messiest circumstances. At 6 months, everything shifted. Phoenix was sitting up, eating solid foods, sleeping through most nights. Evangeline felt like herself again, not the same self as before, but a version she liked better. Stronger. Clearer about what mattered. River came to dinner one evening in late October, the mountains outside her window dressed in autumn gold. Evangeline had made coq au vin, the kind of meal that took hours and tasted like coming home. This is incredible, River said, his eyes closing in appreciation. You're cooking like yourself again. I'm cooking like a new version of myself, Evangeline corrected. The old me would have obsessed over the plating, whether the sauce was restaurant quality, what critics would say. Now I just care if it tastes good and feeds people I love. The word hung between them. Well, Evangeline. River set down his fork. Can we talk about this? About us. Her heart started racing. What about us? You said after Phoenix came. After you adjusted. It's been 6 months. You're thriving, as a mother, in your work, in your healing. And he paused. I'm in love with you. I've been in love with you for months, maybe since that first day when you walked through my door looking broken and determined in equal measure. Evangeline's hands trembled as she set down her wine glass. I love you too. Then why are we still doing this dance? Why am I going back to my cabin every night when everything in me wants to stay here with you? Because I needed to know I could do this alone, Evangeline said. I needed to prove, to myself more than anyone, that I didn't need a man to save me. That I could be a mother, rebuild my career, create a life worth living, all on my own strength. And have you proven it? Yes. The truth of it settled deep in her bones. I have. Phoenix and I were okay. Better than okay. We're whole. River stood, moved around the table, knelt beside her chair. His hands framed her face, those green eyes intense and clear. Then let me love you. Not as rescue, not as necessity, but as choice. Let me be part of this life you've built because we want each other, not because you need me. Evangeline's answer was a kiss, soft at first, tentative, then deepening into something hungry and real. River's hands moved into her hair, hers gripping his shoulders, both of them pouring months of restrained desire into this moment. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, River pressed his forehead to hers. I've wanted to do that since you made me tomato sauce in your kitchen. Evangeline laughed. That was 8 months ago. I know. I'm very patient. Come to bed, she whispered. Stay tonight. Stay every night. Later, tangled in her sheets with River's arms around her and Phoenix sleeping peacefully in the next room, Evangeline felt something she'd stopped believing in, contentment. Not the performance of happiness she'd had with Brian, but genuine peace. What are you thinking? River asked, his voice rumbling against her back. That I'm grateful Brian cheated on me. River's laugh shook them both. That's an interesting take. I mean it. If he hadn't, I'd still be in that marriage, slowly losing myself, building someone else's version of success. I'd never have come here, never have met you, never have discovered this version of my life. She turned to face him. Phoenix and we were born from that betrayal. The real us, not the ones we would have been. That's remarkably evolved of you. Don't give me too much credit. Some days I still want to key his car. She grinned. But most days I'm just grateful I get to be here instead of there. River kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. I'm grateful too. For the path that led you to my door. In the nursery, Phoenix made a small sound, not quite crying, just announcing her presence. Evangeline started to get up, but River stopped her. Let me. He pulled on his jeans, padded to the nursery, returned with Phoenix in his arms. Someone wants Mama. Evangeline settled Phoenix for a late-night feeding, River's arm around them both. This makeshift family, built from ruins and held together by choice rather than obligation. Is this okay? River asked quietly. Me being here for this? More than okay, Evangeline said. This is exactly right. 4 months after Phoenix's birth, River showed up at Evangeline's cabin with flowers and a question that made her stomach drop. Move in with me, he said. You and Phoenix. My place is bigger, has better light for the baby, and we're spending every night together anyway. Why maintain 2 separate spaces? Evangeline stood frozen in her doorway, Phoenix asleep against her shoulder. River, I know it's fast, he continued, clearly having rehearsed this. But we've known each other for almost a year. We love each other. Phoenix needs stability and I can provide that. We can provide that together. Stop. The word came out sharper than she intended. Just stop. River's expression shifted to confusion. What's wrong? What's wrong is you're making decisions about my life without asking if I'm ready. You're talking about what Phoenix needs like you're her father, but you're not. She stopped, trying to find words that wouldn't wound. You're important to us, but River, I left one man who made decisions for me. I won't walk into another situation where someone else knows what's best for my child and me. That's not what I'm doing. River's voice carried an edge now. I'm trying to build a life with you. I thought that's what you wanted. I do want that. Eventually. But it's been 4 months since I gave birth. 4 months since I finalized my divorce. I'm still figuring out who I am as a mother, as a single woman. I need space to do that before I merge my life with anyone else's. So what am I? River asked, hurt bleeding into anger. Just convenient? Someone to help with late-night feedings and hold the baby while you shower, but not worthy of actual commitment. That's not fair. Neither is keeping me at arm's length when I'm all in. River ran his hand through his hair, frustration radiating off him. I've been patient, Evangeline. I waited months while you were pregnant, respected your boundaries, never pushed. But at some point, patience looks like you're just stringing me along. The accusation stung because part of her wondered if he was right. Was she using him? Keeping him close enough to help but not close enough to threaten her newfound independence? I need you to leave, she said quietly. Phoenix is about to wake up for her feeding, and I can't do this right now. Of course. Always about what you need, what you're ready for. River's words were bitter. God forbid I have needs too. He left without looking back. Evangeline closed the door and sank onto her sofa, tears streaming down her face. Phoenix stirred, sensing her mother's distress, and started crying. For 3 days they didn't speak. Evangeline went through the motions, feeding Phoenix, teaching her classes, maintaining her routines, but everything felt hollow. She'd finally found something real, and she was sabotaging it because she was too scared to be vulnerable again. On the 4th day, Dr. Moon called her in for an emergency session. River came to see me, the therapist said without preamble. He's devastated. Says he pushed too hard, violated your boundaries, and doesn't know how to fix it. He shouldn't have asked you to intervene. He didn't? I'm intervening because I care about both of you. Dr. Moon leaned forward. Evangeline, what are you afraid of? That I'll lose myself again. That I'll wake up 5 years from now and realize I've been living River's life instead of my own. Is that what River has shown you? In all the months you've known him, has he ever tried to control your choices? Evangeline thought about it honestly. No. He's been nothing but supportive. So you're punishing him for Brian's sins. The words landed like a slap. That's not. It is. You're so terrified of repeating the past that you're destroying something good in the present. Dr. Moon's voice softened. Love requires risk. It requires trusting someone enough to let them in fully. You can't build a life with someone while keeping one foot out the door. That evening, Evangeline walked to River's cabin with Phoenix bundled against the November cold. He answered the door looking exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed. I'm sorry, she said before he could speak. You're right, I've been keeping you at arm's length because I'm terrified. But you don't deserve that. You've never tried to control me or make decisions for me. You asked a question and I reacted like you were Brian. I shouldn't have pushed. You've been clear about needing time. No, you should have. You have needs too and you're allowed to express them. She paused, finding courage. I'm not ready to move in together. But I'm ready to stop being so scared that I push you away every time we get close. River pulled her inside, wrapped his arms around both of them. I can wait. I just need to know you're actually in this with me, not just tolerating my presence until something better comes along. There is nothing better, Evangeline said fiercely. You're it for me. I just need to get there at my own pace. Then we'll go at your pace. Together. They kissed, Phoenix squirming between them, and for the first time since the fight, Evangeline felt like she could breathe. At 7 months postpartum, on a cold December morning, Evangeline looked up from teaching a class to see 2 women standing in the doorway of the therapeutic kitchen. Her mother. And Celeste. The wooden spoon clattered from Evangeline's hand. Blood roared in her ears. Phoenix, in her high chair, sensed the shift and started fussing. We need to talk, her mother said, stepping forward. Patricia Winters looked older than Evangeline remembered, more gray in her hair, deeper lines around her mouth. Your sister has something to say. Not here, Evangeline managed, her voice strangled. She looked at her class participants, all watching with concern. Take 15 minutes. There's coffee in the lodge. Once they'd filed out, Evangeline faced the 2 women who'd given her life and helped destroy it. How did you find me? Brian told us, Patricia said. After we begged him for months. Evangeline, this has gone on long enough. Celeste is your sister. You can't just cut her out forever. Watch me. Evangeline lifted Phoenix from the high chair, needing her daughter's weight to ground her. You don't get to show up here unannounced and tell me what I can and can't do. Not after what she did. I'm sorry. Celeste's voice was small, broken. She looked terrible, thin, pale, shadows under her eyes. Evie, I'm so sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix it, but I need you to hear me say it. I don't need anything from you. Please. Celeste took a step forward. Evangeline instinctively stepped back. I ruined everything. My marriage, our relationship, your marriage. I was so lost after David left and Brian was there and You chose to sleep with my husband. Evangeline's voice was ice. For 6 months. While I was trying to get pregnant with his child. While I was working myself to death building a business he benefited from. You chose that, Celeste. Every single time. I know. I was selfish and cruel and I destroyed the most important relationship in my life. Tears streamed down Celeste's face. You were the best big sister anyone could have asked for. You protected me, supported me, loved me. And I repaid you with the worst betrayal imaginable. So why are you here? What do you want from me? Nothing. I want to give you something. Celeste pulled an envelope from her purse. This is a letter. Everything I should have said a year ago. You don't have to read it now. You don't have to forgive me. I needed you to know that what I did haunts me every day. That I'd give anything to undo it. Patricia stepped forward. Evangeline, honey, I know you're hurt. But she's your sister. Family forgives. No. Evangeline's voice cut through. Don't do that. Don't minimize what happened because it makes you uncomfortable. Celeste didn't just hurt me, she participated in destroying my marriage while I was vulnerable. That's not a mistake or a lapse in judgment. That's a choice she made repeatedly. I'm not asking you to forget, Patricia said, her own voice cracking. I'm asking you to consider forgiveness. For your sake, not hers. All this anger is eating you alive. Actually, Mom, I'm doing great. Better than I've ever been. I have a daughter I adore, work that matters, and a man who actually respects me. The anger isn't eating me, it's protecting me from people who hurt me. River appeared in the doorway, his presence solid and reassuring. Everything okay here? River, this is my mother and my sister. They were just leaving. We came all this way, Patricia protested. Can't we at least meet our granddaughter? Evangeline looked down at Phoenix, who was staring at the strangers with wide, curious eyes. Her daughter deserved to know her grandmother. But Celeste? Mom, you can meet Phoenix. Briefly. Celeste, she turned to her sister. I'll read your letter. But I'm not promising anything beyond that. You destroyed my trust. Rebuilding it would take years and I'm not sure I'm willing to invest that time. That's fair, Celeste whispered. More than fair. Patricia spent 20 minutes with Phoenix, cooing over her granddaughter with genuine delight. Celeste kept her distance, respecting the boundary Evangeline had drawn. When they finally left, Evangeline felt hollowed out, exhausted. River found her sitting on the porch of her cabin, Celeste's letter unopened in her lap. You okay? I don't know. Seeing her, it brought everything back. The betrayal, the humiliation, the devastation. She looked at him. But I also felt sorry for her. She looked broken. That's not your responsibility to fix. I know. But she's still my sister. Or she was. I don't know what she is now. You don't have to decide today. Or tomorrow. Or ever if you're not ready. River sat beside her. Whatever you choose, I'm here. Evangeline opened the letter later that night. It was 10 pages of raw, honest accountability. Celeste didn't make excuses or blame Evangeline's schedule. She owned her choices completely, detailed how therapy had helped her understand her own damage, and ended with a simple request. Not for forgiveness but for the possibility of it someday. Evangeline folded the letter, put it in a drawer and didn't respond. Maybe someday she would. But not today. Today she had a daughter to raise and a life to build. Celeste's redemption arc wasn't her responsibility. The custody motion arrived 2 weeks before Phoenix's first birthday. Luna called, her voice tight with controlled fury. Brian's filing to modify the custody arrangement. He wants 50-50 instead of visitation weekends. Evangeline felt the room tilt. On what grounds? He's claiming your relationship with River represents an unstable environment. Says Phoenix is being exposed to inappropriate adult relationships and that you're prioritizing your boyfriend over your daughter's well-being. That's insane. River is amazing with Phoenix. And we're not, we haven't even. Evangeline stopped, realizing how defensive she sounded. What are our chances? Honestly? He's grasping at straws. But he has expensive lawyers and they're good at making reasonable things sound concerning. We need to fight this hard. After hanging up, Evangeline stood in her cabin's kitchen, Phoenix playing happily with blocks on the floor, and felt everything she'd built start to crack. What if the judge sided with Brian? What if trying to build a life with River cost her time with her daughter? The breakdown came that night after Phoenix was asleep. Evangeline sat on her bathroom floor, sobbing so hard she couldn't catch her breath. All the progress she'd made, all the healing, all the strength she'd found, it felt like sand slipping through her fingers. River found her there, gathered her into his arms, and let her fall apart. What if I lose her? Evangeline gasped between sobs. What if the judge decides I'm unfit because I dared to move on with my life? That won't happen. You don't know that. Brian has money, lawyers, connections. He can make me look like anything he wants. No, he can't. Because the truth is documented. You're an exceptional mother. Phoenix is thriving. Our relationship is healthy and stable. Any judge who looks at the facts will see that. But what if they don't? What if? Another sob choked off her words. Maybe we should stop seeing each other. Until this is settled. I can't risk losing Phoenix because of us. River pulled back, his hands framing her face. Listen to me. If you want to end this relationship because it's not working for you, I'll understand. But don't sacrifice what we have because you're scared of Brian. That gives him power over your life. He already has power over my life. He's Phoenix's father. He's her father. But he's not your keeper. You get to build whatever life you want, Evangeline. The courts can't punish you for being in a healthy relationship. But the fear wouldn't let go. 4 days, Evangeline pulled away from River, convinced that protecting Phoenix meant sacrificing everything else. She stopped having dinner with him. Declined his invitations to walk. Made excuses when he offered to help with Phoenix. Dr. Moon finally intervened again. You're letting Brian win by doing exactly what he wants, isolating yourself, making yourself smaller, living in fear. I'm protecting my daughter. You're modeling fear for your daughter. Do you want Phoenix to grow up watching you shrink yourself to appease men who try to control you? The words were harsh but necessary. Evangeline had spent a year becoming someone stronger, someone who didn't bow to fear. Now, at the first real test, she was reverting to old patterns. The custody hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Luna prepared meticulously, documentation of Phoenix's excellent development, testimonials from the retreat staff, Dr. Moon's professional assessment, even character references from Evangeline's restaurant colleagues. On the stand, Brian's lawyer tried to paint River as a predator who'd taken advantage of a vulnerable woman. River sat in the gallery, his expression calm as they twisted his kindness into something sinister. Then it was Evangeline's turn. She looked directly at the judge, a different one this time, a man in his 50s with kind eyes. Your Honor, River Blackwood is one of the best men I've ever known. He waited months before we became romantically involved, respecting my healing process completely. He's gentle with my daughter, supportive of my work, and has never once tried to control my choices. My ex-husband's attempt to paint our relationship as unstable is just another way of trying to control my life after I left him for his infidelity. Brian's lawyer objected, but the judge waved him off. Ms. Winters, I've reviewed the documentation extensively. Your daughter appears to be thriving in your care. Your relationship with Mr. Blackwood seems healthy and appropriate. Mr. Beaumont's motion is denied. The existing custody arrangement stands. Evangeline's legs nearly gave out with relief. Outside the courthouse, River was waiting. You were incredible in there. I almost gave up, Evangeline admitted. Almost pushed you away to appease him. But you didn't. That's what matters. She kissed him there on the courthouse steps, not caring who saw. Brian didn't get to control her life anymore. Nobody did except her. 1 year after Phoenix's birth, Evangeline stood in the main lodge of Cascade Wellness Retreat, watching her newest therapeutic kitchen class work through a simple pasta dish. 8 people, each carrying their own trauma, each learning that nourishment could be an act of self-love. Phoenix sat in her high chair nearby, happily making a mess of mashed sweet potato, babbling commentary that made everyone smile. She'd become the retreat's unofficial mascot, proof that healing and growth could happen even in the chaos of new motherhood. Taste as you go, Evangeline instructed, moving between stations. Trust your instincts. The recipe is a guide, but you're the one making the food. Your preferences matter. The metaphor wasn't lost on anyone. These survivors learning to trust themselves again, one meal at a time. After class, River found her cleaning up, Phoenix now napping in a carrier against her chest. The Portland restaurant group called again, he said. They're offering serious money for you to consult on their expansion. Evangeline considered it. A year ago she would have jumped at the opportunity, The validation, the income, the chance to prove she was still relevant in the culinary world. Now she waited differently. How much travel? 2 days a week, plus occasional site visits. That's too much time away from Phoenix. And from this. She gestured at the kitchen, at the space where real transformation happened. Tell them I'll do remote consulting, menu development, staff training via video, but I'm not traveling regularly. Not anymore. River's smile was warm. You've changed. I've found what actually matters. She looked down at Phoenix, her daughter's peaceful face pressed against her chest. I used to think success meant Michelin stars and James Beard awards. Now I think it means this: helping people heal, raising my daughter, building a life that feels real instead of impressive. The divorce had finalized 3 months earlier. Evangeline kept her restaurants but sold Brian her shares in the hospitality group, giving her complete independence. The settlement was fair. More than fair, actually. Brian's guilt had worked in her favor. Custody was shared but weighted toward Evangeline. Phoenix spent most of her time in the mountains, with Brian getting her 2 weekends a month and alternating holidays. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Brian was trying to be a good father, even if he'd been a terrible husband. Celeste had reached out twice, both times through their mother. Evangeline had ignored the messages. Maybe someday she'd be ready to hear her sister's apologies. But not yet. Some betrayals took more than a year to forgive. Come on, River said, taking her hand. I want to show you something. He led her outside to where construction had begun on a new building, larger than the existing kitchen, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. What is this? The Evangeline Winters Center for Culinary Healing, River said. Official name pending your approval. But I've been working with architects for months. This will be a dedicated space for your program, teaching kitchens, offices, even housing for longer-term participants who want intensive training. Evangeline stared at the blueprints he'd pulled up on his tablet. The building was beautiful, all natural materials and light, designed to hold 20 students at a time with professional-grade equipment. River, I can't afford. It's funded, he interrupted. Between the retreat's profits and grants I've secured for therapeutic programs, we can build this. Your program has a waiting list 6 months long. People are driving from across the country to learn from you. This isn't charity, Evangeline. This is investment in something that's already proven its worth. Tears blurred her vision. A year ago she'd lost everything. Now she had more than she'd ever imagined. Not material wealth, though that was stabilizing, but purpose. Partnership. When do we break ground? Spring. It'll be ready by Phoenix's 2nd birthday. That evening, after Phoenix was asleep and they were curled together on the sofa, Evangeline asked the question that had been building for weeks. Do you ever think about having kids? Your own, I mean. River was quiet for a moment. I used to think I'd missed my chance. Got too old, too set in my ways. But watching you with Phoenix, being part of her life. He paused. I'd like that. Someday. If you would. I would, Evangeline said softly. Not right now. Phoenix needs me fully present. But someday. A sibling for her. A child we create together, intentionally. No rush, River said, kissing her temple. We have time. They did. For the first time in her adult life, Evangeline wasn't racing toward the next achievement, the next validation, the next proof of her worth. She was just living, raising her daughter, doing work that mattered, loving a man who saw her clearly and chose her anyway. Before bed, Evangeline checked on Phoenix one more time. Her daughter slept sprawled on her back, arms flung wide, completely secure in her world. Evangeline adjusted the blanket, brushed a curl from her forehead. You're almost one fierce girl, she whispered. And look at the life we've built. Mama kept her promise. You're growing up watching strength, independence, real love. You'll never doubt your worth because you'll see it reflected in how everyone treats you. Especially me. Phoenix stirred, smiled in her sleep, settled deeper. Back in her own room, River already asleep in their bed, she turned off the light, and let herself drift towards sleep, grateful for every choice that had led her here. If you've stayed with us through Evangeline's journey, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to rebuild after betrayal? What would you do in her situation? Drop your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's struggling right now. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more narratives about resilience, transformation, and the courage to build authentic lives from broken pieces. Share this with someone who needs to hear that endings can become beautiful beginnings. Because sometimes the life you lose was never meant to be yours. Sometimes betrayal is just an invitation to find what you were actually searching for all along. Until next time, remember, you're stronger than your worst day and your real life might be waiting on the other side of your biggest devastation. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.